Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. This is Faith Family Focus, and I am one of your co-hosts, Faith Suggs, Duke Women's basketball graduate. Work at LIU in Brooklyn right now, social media manager and director of basketball operations. And this wonderful man to the left of me today is Schaefer Suggs, my father, former NFL player with the New York Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals, and serves on the VP or executive board with the NFLPA of Chicago. Schaefer Suggs, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. We have a very rainy morning, but a special memorial out for 9/11. It's been 19 years. The 19 years, actually, I remember because it was a couple weeks before Devin was born, and just wanted to spend a moment of memorial for all those victims that were lost, especially a very good friend of mine, John Nitty, his brother-in-law, Pat's brother, Brian McAfee. Just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking a little bit about that.
Right. Yeah. 19 years. It's about to be 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years. Right. And it goes fast.
You asked me. Well, I'm in New York now, so what they're gonna do is they might not do the 9/11 memorial lights that they do every year. They might not, just because currently we're in a pandemic and they don't want to draw crowds, but they may. I have been to the memorial a couple times. It's amazing. If people didn't see the photos, it's truly. I remember when we went to New York. Remember when we went to New York and it wasn't finished years ago.
Right. But we were able to see the lights right outside our hotel window. Remember that?
Yeah, it was the 10-year anniversary.
Yes, it was. So.
Wow, time flies. But yeah, so our thoughts were with everyone who has lost loved ones on that day, but also has continued to lose loved ones due to the aftermath and the effects on the people's health. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Friday. And a more wonderfully and blessed note, this is the 50th episode of Faith Family Focus. We've made it 50 episodes. So happy 50th episode, F3.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Crazy. We just wanted to say how thankful we are for all of you, for joining us, for becoming the Faith Family Focus family, for getting your mugs, for joining in every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 9:03 a.m. Central. We continue to love our support, our audience, our viewers. We're excited to see where it goes from 50 to 100 if we have that many more ideas. So, but today is awesome. For those of you who are new, this is Faith Family Focus. We're a father-daughter duo. We feel free to shoot us a wave if you're new, shoot us a like. We are very much interactive with our viewers. Our goal is to use our stories and faith to strengthen family core of our viewers and those around us. So for those of you tuning in, we're really appreciative. We have a website, faithfamilyfocus.net, where we have our blogs, our videos, everything that you want to know and see, and many more cool things to come in the future. But yeah, this is who we are. Today's the 50th episode. It's really exciting. Didn't know we would make it this far, but we are keep on steamrolling through. Today I thought was cool. We wanted to dive into a topic that was pretty interesting. It came to me the other day when I was watching TV and when I was reading a book, which I did my solo show on a book called Relationship Goals. Very interesting book. Don't know if I agree with it completely. But it talks about, he spends a lot of his chapter because he's a pastor and he's been married to his wife for basically their entire lives since high school, right? They've been together and then they're together for 9 years and they got married for 6. And he talks about is having relationships and friendships with those who have the same level of faith maturity as you do, or the faith level, right? People who kind of match your relationship with God. And without that, you see a lot of issues occur within relationships and friendships and circles that don't have those relationships. So when I was reading it, I didn't know how I felt about it. I could understand how I felt about it, but then I also was trying to reflect on it and think, through my own experiences and through my own journey with Christ, how do I feel about it? So I thought that we would talk a little bit about it today. I presented it to you, Dad, yesterday. And you were interested, and we talked a little bit about it last night. We try not to talk a lot about our shows anymore, people, because we tend to get all our content out. So we try to have our raw discussions on the show because he loves to talk, and then basically we have nothing to Well, but I guess me and you can dive a little bit into this, Dad. Um, but let's set the basis and the foundation for our viewers. Talk to me a little bit first. Is when do you come down to your own faith? Um, when did you start to own it? When did you start to kind of see where your level was in comparison to other people around you, or has it evolved?
Well, it evolved, continuously evolved. During my recovery years in the mid '80s, where I was faced with a decision to either live or die. You know, the most important part of the 12-step program is spirituality. It's the foundation of it, and
Right.
that's where, for me, not only did as a kid, and I've shared this with you, I grew up in a Baptist family, a religion, going to church, got baptized, and then you continue to grow, but you kind of grow away from it, through high school, through college. You, with me playing professional football, I don't really remember that that part of my life, those 6 or 7 years in New York, where I spent a lot of time in church because I was so being busy. And so when I was faced with the demons of recovery, because I had a level of awareness for it, I was open to submitting. And I told you, I was like that drowning person in the pool, and when I submitted and I finally reached out, God's hand was already reached out, He was already reaching for me, and that's where it began for me. And that having the result, benefits, being grateful for that was the foundation of my faith, and of course, I think we talk a little bit more about my relationship, your mommy's relationship, and how it was so important to have that foundation as we built our family.
Mm-hmm. And I would agree with you because I think I'm halfway through, a quarter of the way through where you were in your journey. Where I'm now, I'm in New York and I'm independent. And I will say one thing about New York is, although New York has so many different kinds of everything, it's hard to find a good church forming relationship when you first move into a new community.
Mm-hmm.
I've bounced on 2 churches so far. One with like the older crowd. They got a good choir though, and then one is the younger crowd, which is more of kind of what we were raised on. How you kind of had us go to a more open church and free flowing, and I think that it's interesting at this time in my life because when we were younger, you guys took us to church whenever we could on Sundays. But then sports and everything, we all know that sports gets in the way. You got tournaments at 8:30 in the morning, so we tried to get there as much as we could, and we did. We talked and we prayed, and we had a great relationship with our faith within our family. And I think when I got to college, I kind of didn't have my faith for a couple of years. In my senior year, I definitely dove right back into it. I got baptized. It was an awesome experience with my teammates, and now I'm still continuing to try to practice my faith and get closer and closer with God in my younger years in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that yes, I am quarter of the way through your journey. It's funny how that works, and I think that that's good. We're setting our foundation for our viewers. I think that another thing is my current faith is way different than when I was younger, and I think you could say the same thing. Even from you to when you were in your recovery time period, I think that our faith has evolved in many different forms. I think that I've gotten a lot closer to my faith, and I think that by me getting it, you guys got a lot closer as well. Just from hearing me, and then I will go to church and then call you guys, and then you guys will feel the pressure like I should go to church too. We should get up as a family. So I think that it definitely has evolved. But when it comes to your spiritual maturity, your faith maturity, where do you think you are right now? Can you explain to the viewers, because you shared some really cool articles with me yesterday, can you talk to us a little bit about spiritual maturity, where you are and kind of what it is?
Well, it's like I said, it evolves and it grows. I mean, I get it daily, and I always say this. I think you heard me say this, but I get a daily reprieve based on my spiritual condition each day, and I base where I am, where my heart is allowing God to be the first thing out the door. But I'm not saying physically out the door, but making Him be first and staying in the stand in the back seat and let them be in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
When I stay there, my spirituality and my faith continues to grow. I get in trouble when I try to, okay, I'm going to take charge and I'm going to take the steering wheel. I'm just going to dive on into my day without, saying that quick prayer before I go out each day, or at night, getting on my knees and saying, thank you for all the blessings today, and thank you for and bless all the people that are in my life. But that is a constant. That's something that I practice on a daily. And when I don't do it a couple of days, I find myself getting a little off kilter.
Yeah.
And so, as a result of that, my spirituality grows, my faith grows, along with all the other things that went along with having faith and getting through those very difficult times in my life, in our lives, and to know that you will get through it, because as we say, God never gives you anything you can't handle. And as a result of that, I'm willing to allow my spirituality and my faith continue to grow.
Right. I think that I understand that completely. When it comes to spiritual maturity or faith maturity, I think that one, we need to understand that everybody's different. Everybody
Sure.
has different levels, and that's perfectly okay. My teammate Kyra's spiritual maturity was way higher than mine was going into college, because she was more, but they were a lot more stricter on their commitment to their faith and trying to get places, trying to make sure that they got the Lord in their lives. And I thought that was really awesome to be exposed to, because we know our relationship with God. We have a relationship with God. God has the final word. But we were allowed to kind of, like, a lot of our religious growth and education was within us and through education and at the dinner table and discussion. Comparison to her experience was probably more like in church, and it was a structural lecture and they learned through that way. So it was interesting seeing where everybody was at. And I still don't think I'm as far along as Kyra, or people like that in my life, but I understand where my spiritual maturity is, and I understand where I lie, and I understand what's important for me, the values, the morals, the things I try to chase every day. But when I read the articles you sent me, I had never heard of spiritual maturity, but I understood what it was immediately. Um, and it's interesting. I have the article right here. I'll pull it up. It says the first way some people define the spiritual maturity is how long someone has been a Christian. That's a false definition, in my opinion. While age and maturity should be related, they are not always connected. Your spiritual birthday is not always the best indicator of your Christian maturity. The age at which two people become Christians should not be a major factor when gauging their compatibility or what spiritual level they are on. And that dives into what we're going to talk about. But that's what I had to wrap my head around, was spiritual maturity is not how long you've been a Christian. Spiritual maturity is where you started to take ownership, and when you started to really build that relationship personally and in your own ways, right? And I think that as Christians, I think that those of us who practice faith understand when you take ownership of it. And we understand that moment in our lives when we're like, you know what, now it's mine. It's not mine, something for me to curate, to heal, to build, to grow. And so that kind of opened my eyes, and I really loved that. It was a good article. We'll put it on our page later.
It was.
But yeah, so that is one thing I really want to discuss, because today we're going to talk about is how to navigate your way through relationships with those whose faith or spiritual maturity may not be on the same as yours. We've all have come across a lot of people who, one, are atheists. They don't believe in God. They believe in science, or they don't believe in anything. They just believe in a compass, or they're just here on this earth. Or then we have some people, you're laughing, because I've met a lot of people.
And then, I've experienced it. That's why.
Yeah. And you have some people who are like, we believe in God, we believe in a higher power, we believe that this all is here for a reason, but we don't practice our faith as strictly as some. I get that as well. And I want to ask is, Dad, in your life, how has your religion and your relationship with God kind of separated you from some people? You chuckled a little bit, so tell us a little bit about that.
Well, you pray together, you stay together. That was a foundation by which said something that in motion with our relationship with your mom too. And we came from two different places, very, very Catholic upbringing, very strict upbringing, me very Baptist. But I think because we both had experience with recovery, her dad, we were in sync with with the importance of having that in our lives. And there's something in the Bible that says spiritually mature, but also being equally yoked. And that's
Mm-hmm.
something that was our foundation. And as a result of that, you just have a tendency to attract those type of people. Um, if I go to church, the people you're around now, I know that you know that we have a lot of wonderful, beautiful people in our lives that we really don't even talk about Christianity or spirituality or religions, but they're good people.
Mm-hmm.
They are in our lives. I know that mommy, really struggled with going to small groups. We try small groups to embrace ourselves around people that were like-minded, um, thinking about their relationship with God. That was we found our comfort level with that. But I think what happens when you embrace yourself around that, and for our viewers, we're not trying to evangelize. We're sharing, you know, what we've experienced, and how it has worked in our lives. But I can tell you, babe, I think between your athletic career and the people that we met, the people you met in school, our friends, we have a whole different social, economical, spiritual tier of people in our lives. And, but we can also identify those people that we can actually sit down, like your Uncle Mike.
Yeah.
Your Uncle Mike and my brother Mike, we could sit down and be real comfortable about it because that's where we came from. We came from that same mold. And
Right.
so it's okay to be with people, have people in your lives that are not, don't have that same level of maturity.
Right.
But just understand, as you get deeper into relationship, especially a intimate relationship, I think it becomes a little more important.
Right. Okay. This is gonna be an interesting topic because I might disagree with you on some things. Here is my thoughts about. Let's go with friendships first. I think that you are 100% right, and I think that is one thing that I should talk about is when you live your life the way God wants you to live your life, like you live your life with your eyes on Him, you attract people who kind of like one live that life as well, but also want to be near you and learn. So you get a lot of positive people around you with that. But I also think that you just form other relationships. We have had many friendships in other families who don't have the same religious background as us. Even growing up, like when we were younger, that was the main family in our life was that way. And I think that one thing you guys did good as parents is you kind of exposed us to is like, this is what they believe, this is what they don't believe, but you never said that they were bad people for that. You never said anything about them. You just allowed them to kind of be in our lives, and you continue to live the life that you wanted to live, and you formed our relationships with us, with God, in our own way by never like patronizing or putting other people down to make us feel like that is the wrong way to live your life.
Right,
And I
right.
think that was the best way to do it, and the most helpful way for me because I grew up in our faith from that by accepting all people and understanding all people and not judging others, which is the right way to do things, which I think sometimes gets skewed in the process of when we think of Christianity and religion. So I think that was one of the main reasons that throughout my life I never really had to separate from certain people who had different views or morals or religious backgrounds than me because I was exposed to so much difference growing up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You guys never formed the thought in my mind that because they were different they were wrong, and because they were different they were going to hell, and because they were different, you know what I mean? Like you never
Right.
created this negative vibe over people who weren't in line with our religion or weren't in line with our values.
Values, right.
And not everyone is capable of doing that. And I think that one thing is when you do that to people or you seem judgmental or closed off within your faith, you can turn a lot of people off from an opportunity for them to get to know God and get to know your religion and how you study and how you try to grow within it. And I feel like that's a missed opportunity because as Christians, we're supposed to live our lives the way God would want us to live our lives and live our lives in love the way God loves us. So if you're not doing that, in a way, you're really not serving God to the fullest. And I always think this because I have met friends or people who don't get that part of it, and they don't get they get the practicing faith and studying and trying to like be in line and follow the rules and never break a rule, but they forget the part of being a human being, which is a major part of the big overall picture of religion and faith and God and loving others as much as you can.
Right.
So I was glad that you guys did not. That pretty much affected my decision making amongst my life with meeting people who didn't have the same ideas as I did, for sure. I mean, do you guys know, was that normal for you guys to do? Sorry.
Yeah. So my question is, you said you disagree with me. I'm trying to understand, was it the part of us not actively evangelizing? Because I felt that the way we lived, I don't know if that was the part that you were, but I felt that the way we lived our life was the attraction to the people that we wanted in our lives. So, there are, religions, and there are people that will go out and knock on doors, but we believe that, we attracted the right-minded people. And like a lot of those people are in different places. We probably haven't had discussions with a lot of those people in our lives about spirituality. So I was just trying to be clear about what you were slightly disagreeing about.
It wasn't that. It was the amount of importance that religion lies within relationships that don't have the same faith maturity.
Okay. Gotcha.
I 100% agree. And this is why I struggled with that book. Is because he was a pastor and they both had grown up in the church. It was almost like this is the ideal relationship for you to have as a good Christian. And my thing is 100% if both people have had the opportunity to know God from a young age. Not everybody has that opportunity. And it's not because everybody decides that, oh, we're not going to bring our kids to church. It's because sometimes people just don't have an opportunity or feel comfortable enough to walk into a church and really expose themselves to God. That is a very much a common thing, because spirituality and religion can sometimes be intimidating to a lot of people. And so when I think of, is it important? I think it's important to those who, one, want that in their lives. And I think as all Christians we do. But I think it too is those who have really been surrounded by people like that their entire lives. For someone like me, I'm obviously more open to a lot of people. I would never date or be friends with someone like closely and be able to share my thoughts with someone who doesn't believe in God in general. That's just where I come from, because it just would be too much pushback. But you know what? That's different. And here's what the deciding factor for me is. If you have a different level of spiritual maturity than I do, but you still support my faith, support my practice, support, you know what I mean? Like, you're still in line with me and support what I believe in because that's what matters to me. And somehow that works for me. I'm fine with that. And that's how I am with everybody in my life. Like my friends, family, anybody, right? Like, that is what it should be about. I don't understand. I just can't understand being with someone who completely pushbacks and does not support your faith because of their own situation. And I think that relationship or friendship is bound to fail anyways, because they're not walking into doors with an open mind to be able to understand and not judge the person in front of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So are you talking about friends, or we're talking about a relationship? You're talking about friends, right? Okay. Do you feel that, how important do you feel being equally yoked? When we say equally yoked, what does that actually mean to you?
It means on the same page, the ability to pray together, the ability to challenge each other in your faith, continue to help each other grow within your faith, be able to bounce ideas off each other within your faith. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's not a constant, and someone can be equally yoked and still try to help someone else learn. Does that make sense? It means both people have an open mind towards growing within their faith together. That for me is what I understand. And what was your question? What was your question?
So at what point in a relationship, and I'm just speaking in terms of intimate relationships, because that is what the foundation of obviously we be finding the woman of my dreams and being equally yoked, and we were very, very different in the beginning. I mean, years, color, years difference, but we found that point where we found that common ground. We were able to grow from there. There was a willingness to grow. There was never any discussion about you need to be more spiritual, you need to pray more. Okay, we are not going to be able to navigate through this very difficult time if we don't come together spiritually. It was never that, and that was never a challenge. So I'm saying, if you are with someone that they're not on the same spiritual maturity, how do you navigate through that?
Well, here's what I'll say. This is what I have learned in my last 6 to 7 years is someone can be this great Christian, great follower of Christ, try to help you become a great Christian and still be a really bad person.
Right.
And still not have your best interest in mind. Because the problem with a lot of people is that they can try to study and learn Christ as much as they can, but there's a disconnect in their ability to live it. And that's what for me opened my eyes, because I was like, at first I was like, I want someone in my life who I can like grow old with and all that, who matches my spiritual maturity. But then I started to realize is there has to be so much more for a foundation than just a spiritual maturity. They can't, because what I learned is that some of the people who were so close and had a stronger spiritual maturity and discipline than I did still didn't know how to be great people and great supportive mates. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and for me, that opened my eyes. It was like, okay, you got this stuff down, but what it sounds like is that you're selfish within your faith, and you're selfish in your own journey. And at the time, I don't care about you then. You know what I mean? Like, I have my own faith, and my journey with faith is so strong that I don't need to try to combine with somebody if they don't have, at the end of the day, the great qualities of a good person. That is what, at the end of the day, you can't be a great Christian if you don't have the back end of it, right? You can't have one or the other. You have to be a great person and someone who continues to try to study your faith. You can't be one or the other. You know what I mean? So that kind of opened my eyes to a little bit. It was like, maybe that trait or that quality that we have so high in the list of people we try to find who we want to be with, maybe it should have like a little asterisk next to it where it's like, to be decided. You know what I mean? Because obviously you want someone who respects your faith, understands your faith, and supports your faith. That is 100%. If that doesn't happen, it's doomed from the beginning. But these people also have to have, at the end of the day, when we think of religion, you think of right or wrong, right? Morals, values that are instilled within us, within the word of the Bible, within the lessons, the stories we learn, right? From the beginning of from little Bible classes, we learn our morals and values from the beginning through our religion. And the thing about it is, not a lot of people maybe are exposed and know Cain and Abel by mouth, or know the story of Noah, right? Maybe they don't have all that, but they understand the qualities of these stories and the morals and values that matter at the end of the day. So if this is someone who is going to be with you and they hear you tell a story and you know the Christian way to go about it, and they support that because they, one, know that's your Christian mental going into it, but also because they know right or wrong. They know how not to do things wrong. They don't sin. They don't do stuff like this. Then that is more accepting for me than someone who has a strong spiritual maturity as I, but also is not a good person. You know what I mean? So that's why when people say it's so important, I'm like, but I have met a lot of people who have a higher spiritual maturity than me and are really bad people. Like, I think we all have. Like, they're just like really judgmental. They're rude. I mean, even right now in the moment of social justice, we see a lot of Christians who are not in support of all humans, right? And I think it's very interesting, right? Religion is only beautiful if it accompanies being a great person at the end of the day.
That was powerful. At the end of the day, you have a level of Christian maturity. Why is there so much difference right now in the way we accept or not accept justice? right?
Yeah.
That is a very powerful statement,
Yeah. It says, love thy neighbor.
Hmm.
You're not loving someone if you're not hearing their pain. You're not loving someone if you're not listening with your ears and mind open. You're not loving someone if you're listening just to respond. This is a major thing, and that's why I think a lot of relationships and friendships I have right now are struggling because, well, a lot of my friends who are religious and strong in their faith are my black friends. And it's very interesting. I remember when we first got to college, Kyra and Crystal, my other two teammates, they went to one church. And Faith and Haley went to like the church on campus, which everyone knows Duke has a chapel. But Duke is like divinity school, so it's more Catholicism. So we walked in, it was the funniest story ever. We walked in and we sat in the back. And like, you know how like we weren't raised in Catholic church, okay? But like we had a relationship with God. Obviously mine was a little farther ahead than Haley's. But like she still was like in line with me, right? We had two different spiritual maturities, but Haley was still a good person. So we went and like, you know, in Catholic church, Catholics don't understand. You guys are always on point with what you're supposed to do. For people who don't grow up Catholic and you walk into a Catholic church, Dad, you know what I'm talking about? You're like,
I
wait,
do. I do.
follow the people next to you because you're really trying to figure out like what do I okay. Like there's so much to know, right? In
Well, I knew I
comparison,
knew we had Sue in there. I tell you that.
yeah. It's a lot of discipline. They know though. They know a lot. But I will say that, but it's completely different to the churches we went to, from
Right.
Westbrook to Calvary, where it was like you come in, you shouldn't come in late, but we were late, and you start off with the worship and songs of worship, and then you go into the scripture, right? In the lecture, and they leave with the message. There's a message. It's about an hour 45 minutes long. There's a message, and then you go home. That is what we were used to. We were in that for like 2 hours, and we both were like maybe this isn't the church for us. But we tried it out, and I bounced around 4 churches when I was in college, and then I eventually was baptized with a church that was for like college students. But I was thinking like, not all religion is for everybody, and that's perfectly okay because I'm still a good human, and I'm still,
Right.
you know what I mean? I understand my morals and values, and that is all that matters to me. At the end of the day, the number one rule: am I trying to love everyone the way God loves me? Am I trying to live my life in the way that God would live his life on this earth? Obviously more powerful, but like, am I trying to be a great example for others? And one thing I thought interesting about the readings we had, which I want you to give your input on, is they talked about which was why I was happy with these readings, it wasn't as important to have, they had pros and cons. And the pros were, it's not as important to have someone on the same spiritual maturity as you, is because if you're comfortable in living your life the way God wants you to live your life, you're building for both of you, right? You're helping that person by being a great example. They're watching you, right? You are bringing people along with you. And maybe that person doesn't want to come along, right? Maybe they don't want to be a Christian, but maybe they're still understanding, okay, that's the wrong thing to do. That's the right thing to do, right? They're starting to pick up what's right and wrong within a religion sense, even though it's still a great human being sense, which I still understand why people don't get that. But that for me was like big, because I was like, that's exactly what our purpose on life on this earth is to try to be great examples for God and for his kingdom and his community and our brothers and sisters. Because you don't understand, just like how one person in a race can make all the people in a race look bad, or one person in the class can make all the people in the class look bad, one person in religion and there's a lot of people, they turn a lot of people off from religion. There's a lot of people who don't like religion because of terrible experiences with people who are Christians or Catholics or etc., who intimidate that person. I mean, what do you think about that? Like, don't you think it is beneficial that you don't have to be on the same spiritual maturity as long as you're living your life the way you're supposed to live it? I mean, what's your opinion?
Well, I fully agree with you, because a part of recovery is that you don't necessarily believe God. You believe in a power greater than yourself. You have some sense of some type of spiritual foundation and live your life the way you're supposed to live your life, the next right thing. So I truly agree with you. And when you were talking about, being around people that go to church and they evangelize the Bible, I grew up in that environment, and it was that same people that person that the night before were out doing something crazy. So I have had visibility of the hypocrisy of that,
Right.
and so when it comes to surrounding yourself around people, friends, you know, that's the most important thing. I like when you say it's just being around the right human being, the right person that just happen to have, a level of spiritual foundation that they understand what's right, what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being graceful about it. Being more accepting about it. I like what you said. Love thy neighbor, acceptance and patience. Those are very important words that go into it. So we both have experienced it. Your story about going into the church. You have to find your group. You have to find what's comfortable for you because I know Mommy and I we went to a couple churches. The church that we actually got married in was Christian. We were sitting there, and then they started praying in tongues, and then people were touching people were falling out. And she grabbed my wrist, and we were out of that church. Right? That was we were comfortable with, because I had visibility to that growing up too, right? But we found that sweet spot for us, and that's really what's important is finding what works for you.
Yeah. And I think that you continue as you meet more people, and that's the great thing about religion is you get to meet so many people from different areas of maturity spiritually that you start to learn new things. Like I didn't know that that miming in a church was a thing. Like I didn't understand
Right.
that. And then Kyra and Crystal and I went to a church and they mimed, and I was like, I've never seen this before. And Kyra was like, yeah, my brother used to mime, and they're my church. And like it was it was actually pretty awesome. And then we went to a church that was more like a mega church, like the one that we kind of went to when in our own experiences of family, and they had mime, and it was very.
So for the viewers, explain to the viewers who may not understand what that is. Explain what
A
that is.
mime. It's a mime. That's literally what it is. It's a mime who dances and portrays kind of what the song's message is, etc.
Okay.
Right? Very, very, very kind of cool to watch.
Right.
But like I said, you meet so many new people that you learn so many new things through religion. That's awesome. And I think that that's the whole point. Like, not everybody is supposed to be on the same level as you. And if you want to be with someone or have friends like that, that's fine, because that means that helps you stay sane. But for me, I'm not like a big like judgmental person about all that. Like, I'm only judgmental and turned away if you are pushback and disrespectful towards my faith and towards
Right.
how I live my life, because that means honestly you're not a good human.
Right.
People who judge other people aren't good humans. Like, people who judge other people and judge other people's faith, it's coming from a place, and it's like you should never have that much hatred in your heart towards something that has nothing to do with you. That is my thing, and that's how I kind of try to live my life, because I'm trying to be a good human. That you don't have to agree with everything, but you shouldn't put any negativity or hatred in your heart towards something that has not, like, that doesn't even affect you, that does not even come across your table or nothing. That is when I struggle, because I'm like, okay, well, you know what, this friendship, this relationship, all this might not work, so I'm gonna go this way and you're gonna go that way, and that's perfectly okay, because I said we should normalize the ending of friendships without aggressive things. I said this last episode. Why we get so upset when some people just want to go separate directions? But that is the only time I really see it as the issue, is when you perform disrespect and pushback towards something that really, I mean, you can't control how someone wants to live their life. So why are you trying to?
Right.
What I mean?
That's where you apply this serenity prayer. But let me ask you this: at what point in a relationship, have you experienced it? I know I have. When you realize that maturity, spiritual maturity is impacting the relationship?
The only time I ever realized, I don't really realize like that. I only realize when I think the only time it impacts in a relationship is if it impacts me. Like if by that person's inability or level of maturity isn't as high as mine and it's causing me to not be as involved in my faith, one, because I'm uncomfortable expressing it around that person, that's when it really has to do with me. I guess I'm selfish with that.
I
have no fear in the world what they're doing, but if it impacts the way that I'm practicing my faith, that's when I see like, all right, this is not something that, because you start to lose your way, like you said. If you don't like reconnect or try to get back on where your mental and your relationship needs to be with God, then you start to feel a little off. I think we all understand that. You start to like lead like temptation of negative ways and just being spiteful and just kind of like, honestly, you just don't feel great. You don't feel happy all the time. You worry about a lot of things that you wouldn't worry about in life. Like, and that is one thing that when you keep your relationship with God strong, even though it's not easy, it doesn't mean you never have worries. At least you have something like, you know what, at the end of the day, my faith in God is strong enough and I'm going to continue to pray and pray and pray, and he'll take the worries and stresses away. That is something, that relationship's kind of like an outlook for you. And I feel like that's sometimes, that's a good point. If you are with somebody who doesn't have the same spiritual maturity as you, here's what I'll say about Christians and people who follow a faith. They have an outlook and someone to talk to who's not the other person, right? It's not the friend or the spouse or whatever. And that relieves a lot of pressure for that person, because they're not going to turn all their worries and negativity on that person. They're going to turn their worries and negativity towards God, who will take it and help them through that. You have to be with someone, if your spiritual maturity is on the same moon, who doesn't turn their negativities and stresses on you all the time. You know what I mean? Like, not everybody is capable of doing that. So if you guys don't have the same spiritual maturity, but that person also wants to confide everything to you and try to put all their stresses on you or their doubts and stuff like you, that's when you start to see things crumble. But if you are with someone who is able to kind of understand, like, I can't express every single thing to this person because it drains people a lot, you're an energy drainer, that's when I see it can be beneficial, because you understand the balance of controlling your emotions, who to talk to, stuff like that. That's what I think religion is awesome, because it really is a place for you to send your worries that's not onto another person, because it's exhausting. Like, have you've been in friendships or relationships where like it feels like it's constantly like draining and stressful and negativity, and you're like, I'm trying to be positive, I'm trying to like look at the best thing in life, but it's like always constantly like, you know what I mean? So I think that's the great thing about having a faith and having another place to be and have a relationship and expose literally every single thing that stresses you or worries you in your life to God, and not just one person who might get overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think when you have maturity in religion, spirituality, and confidence, it gives you. It's easier for you not to give someone that power. You don't give them that kind of power, right? Yeah. And at some point in time, it begins to be draining. And that's not just with relationships, intimate relationships, but that's with friends. You know, again, I would talk about putting people in different shelves. You just have to move them off that important shelf in your life, and you know, not necessarily excluding from your life, unless you feel that person is not healthy for you. Because there are times, there are times where you have to exclude people in your life because, I mean, they're not living their life the way God wants them to live. They're doing bad things. You know, there are evil people out there, and what we're having visibility right now in our society is really so challenging, because some of the people that we see and what we're looking at are people that consider themselves faithful spiritual people, right? Which is unhealthy, right? So that was a good answer. I like that. I mean, I think we as Christians have to have the confidence to continue to build our maturity to a point where whenever we're confronted with that, we have the ability to make decisions to obey.
Yeah. And I will say this as we're coming like to a close, I do see the negatives in having friendships and relationships with people who maybe don't have the same maturity as you, because I can see it, and this is what I've been saying is what you get on both sides of it. Is the only way I can see it being an issue is if they're doing sinful actions and forms of disrespect and honestly not understanding right and wrong and making you feel uncomfortable in your own faith. That is when, but I think that's like what we're taught as kids, with or without religion, is that people who aren't in line with what you like to do, what you believe in, and stuff like that, maybe aren't the best people for you. We talk about peer pressure, stuff like that. So I think that that's when you kind of start to see, like, you got to understand, okay, these people don't come from the same space of discipline and religious discipline that I come from. And that is why they're able to just act and lie and do things like this their way, and maybe that's not the space for me to be in. That is when I can 100% understand it and 100% see how it can be an issue. But that's you also knowing if he's a good person. Like, that at the end of the day, you can get people who do that and still say they practice the faith.
Right.
Because, yeah, go ahead.
But this is really wonderful, because what you do get, and I'm so blessed that you, as my daughter, able to have this your own conversation around spirituality, because I watched it evolve in you. That you now can make the decisions about your faith and who should be in your life, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to do. And it's one of the promises that I made to your mom, was to make sure that I push for that. Now, hopefully Devin gets to a place where, he's going to find his way, but then that's, again, getting back to letting go and letting God.
Right.
And you find it when you want it, when you're ready to find it, you find it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I had to face some really dark times. I had to decide, okay, do I let go and let God, or do I just give up? And with the grace of God, I decided to allow God to navigate me out of that.
Yeah. No, 100%. I'm glad that not everybody. I tell you this all the time. You guys raised us really well, where you guys exposed us to so much difference, so much diversity, that we were exposed to different religions. We were exposed to people who had different spiritual maturities. We were exposed to people who didn't believe in God at all. We were exposed to so much. You guys stay true in your discipline and how to raise us within our religion, how to form relationships with God on our own. And I think that because you guys did that, and because we were so like immersed in it, that we were able to take ownership. I was able to take ownership early. Devin probably will eventually, but when you're at college, you're on your own journey to find your path and stuff like that. So I think that, like I said before, when we started the show, is your emotional maturity and spiritual maturity change throughout time, over and over and over again, and they evolve. Just like how I said, your purpose evolves. I think that your spirituality goes hand in hand with whatever you're doing in your life. If you have kids, when you get married, when you get a new job, when you retire, like everything, it changes and grows throughout time. And I think that is what's awesome about understanding your faith and understanding your relationship with God, but also understanding how to navigate certain people that should be in your life, can be in your life, and shouldn't be in your life. That just comes with a lot of discipline and understanding how to accept others.
Right.
So,
well, let me ask you, the advantage of having someone that's somewhat equally yoked is how you navigate through challenges, whether it's the loss of a job, whether it's the loss of a loved one, whether it's the things that we go through. Those are things that are put in our lives. It's important, or is it important? What's your opinion, to have someone that's in line with your maturity, to help you navigate? Because if you don't, you find yourself carrying most of the weight. And at what point in time, is that going to be so taxing that it's a struggle?
Here's what I'll say, and I had this discussion yesterday. It's very interesting. There's a lot of debates within my personal relationship where we discuss a lot of this, and what we discussed was, I said, well, here's my thoughts, because my biggest thing on religion is you can't explain. I said, there's birds and trees. Like, you can't explain this all to me without saying God. And they agreed with me, and they were like, yes, but I'm trying to explain to you something about faith. And I was listening. He said, the way faith is in your brain is beautiful, but it's also your discipline in controlling your own mind and how you approach things in your life, right? And that's kind of one thing I talk about a lot on my solo show was how I approach adversity, how I approach failure, how I approach success mentally. One, my brain is extremely disciplined by my faith, right? To trust God and understand He has a journey and a mission for everything I go through in life. But also understanding that my mind is disciplined enough, maybe as an athlete, maybe as things I've been through, that I can approach anything and still somehow find a positive in a negative, right? I have the ability to kind of approach a situation and be like, you know what, this is a process, right? God is putting me through this, but also I have the ability to take control and be able to go through it on my own with God because I have the discipline to be okay. I've gone through so much more. You know what I mean? I've been through a lot. And I think that was a great point because it was like, you have this wonderful, amazing relationship with God, but God also instilled so much qualities in you and so many lessons in your life for you to be able to challenge yourself and be strong enough in your mind to jump over these hurdles and get through these things. So when I think about that, maybe I just have a really good partner, but like we discussed that a lot. And it was like, in my mind, I was thinking, when you have that self-discipline, when you have that ability to be able to control your thoughts and try to understand the positive in everything, that is where I can see how you'll be able to communicate effectively and get through things effectively, whether it's friendships or relationships. That is when I realized when you understand your mental, understand your discipline, and you understand the things you've been through, and you look on through your life, your journey, etc. That is when I was like, I get it. Like, God has all, right? God has my soul. God has my relationship. God has it all, right? But God also has put me through so many things and so many trials and tribulations that He has made me so strong that I should never victimize or deteriorate or fall to any event in my life that is struggling.
Right.
You know what I mean? That is when it was like, because you can't, and I say this about relationships and friendships, you can't rely on a friendship or relationship at all in your life except for just for support, right? You can't rely on that person for answers. You can't, that's way too much power in another person's hands. The only person who should have that much power is God. That's what I was thinking. So that's how I get through hard times. Because really, I have been through so much, and a lot of it I've been through with my family, but a lot of it I've been through on my own.
Right.
And I've gotten through it. So I'm sitting here and I'm looking at a situation at hand, and I'm like, gosh, this is a problem. This is a big deal. Like, how am I going to get through it? I've been through a lot. I've done a lot. I have achieved a lot. And I think that is something that comes from me. But not everybody has that ability. Not everybody has that. So you have to continuously train your brain and train your faith so that when you get and face these hurdles, you can overcome them.
Right. But you acquired a faith toolbox, a spiritual toolbox over the years. And, you know, you have someplace to go. You know that you have those tools. You continue to sharpen those tools, and then it's up to you whether or not you want to use them or not. And that's a result of what you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah. But I think it was a wonderful show.
Yeah.
We appreciate everything and everyone joining us for our 50th show.
Yes,
Thank you again for joining us this wonderful Friday morning. We'll see you guys on Monday. We want to thank everyone. Thank you, Amazon Fire, Facebook, YouTube, Roku, Apple TV, and most importantly, our key platform out of Phoenix, Arizona, E360 TV. Again, this is Faith Family Focus, where we want to use our faith as a vehicle to help heal and sustain others on strengthening their family core. And again, like always, let go, let God, let go, let faith, let go, let love. Everyone have a great Friday and stay safe.